Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Authors on Mission podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. And today we are so excited to welcome on Karen Rauch Carter. She's a Feng Shui consultant and a best-selling author. Today we're going to be talking about her fascinated world of Feng Shui and, her writing process, how she created the book, Move Your Stuff, Change Your Life. She has transformed the practice of Feng Shui into accessible wisdom for modern life, helping countless readers create positive change through their internal space design. And we're going to learn how that applies to the writing process and how that can help you boost your career and your life as well. So without further ado, Karen, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks. So fun. Can't wait to chat with you and see what this is all about and hopefully help somebody along the way. Please. It's interesting when you're asked to give content, like to offer something. I feel like this book came out on, I don't know how old some of your people are, but this came out on Y2K Day, if anybody remembers that. So it's a very old book. Still selling, still giving me royalties after all these years. So I hope my journey isn't even relevant these days, but I think there's always a gem in there somewhere for somebody.
No, definitely. There's a lot of evergreen tips and materials that we can use no matter what it is. And, being that you made it last the test of time in itself, I'm sure you have amazing insights to share with us. But before we dive into it, do you mind holding it up again for us?
Sure.
Know that you have it right with us. Everyone, there it is right there. Move your stuff, change your life. I'm loving that cover design. Did you have a part to play in that?
It's so funny. It's the only thing I didn't have a say about. I actually asked them to put a yellow spine on it. That was my only thing I got to say about it. And I cried when I saw the book. I hated the cover.
Oh, did you?
And I did. I hated it. I thought it looked like a second grade art project or something. And it looks very cluttered to me. I thought it would be all zen and stuff. Then as I started doing book signings out and about, every single bookstore owner was like, that cover jumps that book off the shelf. And I'm like, I love the cover, because you got to let the professionals do what the professionals do. So that was a very successful cover design. And maybe don't dig your heels in too deep on what you think the cover should be, because I would have had a different cover and I don't think it would have been quite as successful according to the bookstore owners.
Yeah, they always say don't judge a book by its cover. But that's interesting to think about, especially because your content is all about organization and design and how it, every aspect of it has to work together. So it's a shame that you weren't able to kind of incorporate that because, by nature, the cover design of your book, should have maybe been something that you had more of a say in. But, I guess, like you said, it did lead to a lot of profits. Just for reference to all of our listeners out there, if you're somebody who's, considering writing a book, don't let this kind of thing deter you either, because there are many different options out there where you're able to design your own covers and have a say in it. Authors on Mission, for example, our clients who come to us, we actually have illustrators who bid on your cover design and they try to get you to pick their design specifically. So you have a lot of say in it. But aside from the matter, going back to your point, Karen, it is important to kind of just go into it with an open mind. And, at the end of the day, it's what catches the eye too, right? What gets people going towards it.
I think the juvenileness that I think the word that everybody says that this book is accessible. And so I made Feng Shui accessible to the average person. It didn't sound all woo-woo and all like esoteric and hard to do. And so the cover did tell that story, I think, and I just needed to catch up with it.
Right. Well, branching off of this, there's two directions I'd like to take. First, I'd like to go a little bit more into who you are and your journey. I know that you started with, greeting card designs, for example. I'm kind of curious to know, and if you can help our listeners know as well, like what you started, where you ended up where you are today, and Where along that process did you decide I need to write a book? Like, what was that moment when you were like, you know what, I've been doing what I'm doing for a while. Now I'm going to start writing. If you could just kind of give us that.
Ay, ay, ay.
I know it can
It
be
didn't
complex.
even it didn't even happen that way.
No, okay, let
It
us
was,
know.
yeah. So I'm a landscape architect and land planner. So I'm a designer. I had a design firm, and then you know how you have those people that they're just in your life and they turn. You're like, if it wasn't for that person and that decision, they told me to do that, my life would have been in a whole different direction. So I had my best friend, and she worked in the greeting card industry. She asked me to come to New York City because she had a free hotel room for the show at the Javits, the New York Paper and Stationery Show. I'm like, I was just bored enough to go and just hang out with her in New York City. This is how it all began. Nothing to do with books, nothing to do with anything. I was at the New York Paper and Stationery Show, and in that show, the card companies put on top of their booth what they're looking for, and artists come around with their wares to sell the ideas for cards. This is how it used to be. I don't know if it still even happens anymore. And so that this was back in the like 91, height of AIDS. And there was a greeting card company that sold AIDS sympathy cards. Like that was their line.
Oh,
like a
very
whole
specific.
company.
Very
And
specific.
they set up on the top of their booth, it said, "We only buy from gay artists." And I was like, wow, that's like separatism in reverse. Like, what? And so I said to them, like, that's kind of weird. You don't think a straight person could, I was bored waiting for my friend. Literally, this is how it starts. And so I said, well, what if I had a 50% gay owned greeting card design company? Would that be gay enough for you? Like, I'm pushing buttons at this point. And so I said, does it have to be 51? And I said, well, I have a 50% gay owned greeting card company. Will you buy my art? And she's like, well, I'll consider it. I mean, it was literally this lady that rubbed me the wrong way that started this whole ball of wax. So I ended up calling my friend. I said, we're going to business together. We're going to do some gay greeting cards. The very next year, she bought them. The very next year, our cards were in the show. And then my best friend said, there's this thing called the Louis Awards. I think you should enter your cards in the Louis because they're so unusual. To this day, I don't know if there's any cards like it, from gay to straight and straight to gay. So we called it the crossover line. This is in the early 90s, where gay was not a good term. And, it was like different than it is today. And so very next year, I'm standing there. Thank you all for this. What is it, Louis? Yay! So we won the Louis Award, which is the Greeting Card Design of the Year Award. And so I'm saying this because you might be coming at books from a completely different angle. You've never written a book before, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, what do I know? We were absolutely not anything to do with understanding the greeting card industry. And it was because we were so out of the box that we designed something that they had not thought of before, because we didn't know the box or what was inside. We just designed what we thought we would like. And so don't think you have to have a writing degree or blah, 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 blah. Just chuck all that. And so because we won that Louis Award, we were in lots of Wall Street Journal, a lot of magazines, a lot of things. We had a lot of press about that. And Simon Schuster, somebody at Simon Schuster saw that and called me to ask if we would write a book based on our greeting card designs. I was like, sure, you're Simon & Schuster. And I'm, wait, what? You are? So they called me. Now, I had my house feng shui for any and all opportunities. So when you have your house feng shui, you have to watch what comes by and don't dismiss these things. Follow the trail, see it out, because it could be something that you're like, whoa, that's so off in the weeds. I don't think that's a part of my journey, but it might bring you right back on track. So the next thing you know, we designed a book because they asked us for a book. Didn't have to do a proposal, didn't have to do anything. Will you write the book? Yes, we'll write the book. We did the book for them. They said, we want another book. We did another book for them. So now I feel like I'm very off in the weeds of my life. Going to gay pride parades and all, just shock jock radio shows, radio drive tours for publicity for these books. And I was pregnant, morning sick. I was not interested in I just felt like, how did my life get over here? Thought I was going over there and now I'm over here. What's happened? And I said, look, I don't care if you sell another book. I'm out. Like that's not my jam. And I said, look, I'm a landscape architect. I know this thing called Feng Shui. Maybe that's something you're interested in. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Write a proposal. I'm like, I've never written a proposal for you in my life. So now I'm back to writing initiate, where I had to write a 52-page proposal about my 325-page book. And so I did the proposal and I got a rejection letter from them. And because I wrote a book that said it was a feng shui your landscape. And she said, that is a great proposal. Take it to a smaller house. They'll buy it. We're just Simon & Schuster. We do mass market. We just, that's a niche book. It's not going to happen here. So the last line is always about looking for opportunities. When you have feng shui, you got to be eagle eye on where's the opportunity. So on the last line of the rejection letter, it said, although we're looking to acquire a feng shui book, this isn't the one. So I'm like, well, this is how I know how to get things published with a publisher. What do you want? And then, am I willing to write that? So she said, we're looking for a fun feng shui book. And at that time, blasphemy, like how fun feng shui? I don't even get it. And she said, because you wrote those 2 humor books, very campy humor books, she said, I think you can do it if you smash that kind of humor in with a feng shui book. So it was the off in the weeds. I didn't know why I was a part of these 2 books, that brought me to the creation of this book, which is a very sort of pop culture reference, lighthearted, campy even maybe, way of talking about feng shui. And a laugh while you learn, which at the time I thought, wow, if I had a feng shui book to read that I would understand feng shui and not be so struggling to get to the end of it, then I'd be happy. So I took upon that task to do it. And that's how Movie Stuff Changed Your Life came about, which was probably, Movie Stuff Changed Your Life was part of the subtitle of the book that got moved up to the title. So don't even be, married to your title of your book. So beware that things can happen for the better. So that's how this book came about. Then they bought the book. And then after I had this book, offered, Simon & Schuster, we want that book, get an agent. I only had an attorney doing my books before because they already wanted them. They're just so I had my attorney just read the contract. So she's like, this is your 3rd book with us, get an agent. So I tried to find an agent. Now, I had 2 books published with Simon & Schuster, and I had an offer hello, agent, anybody want to take 15 to 20% of my money? Could not find an agent. This book was already a bestseller, and I was still getting rejection letters from all the queries that I sent out trying to find an agent. That's how long it took for them to reply, and they still weren't even interested in somebody who had written 2 books with Simon & Schuster already. So I went to a little community, local, the little papers. It's like, these are the events, knitting, paddleball, an agent is going to come and teach you how to write a book. I went there because he was an agent. And so I sat throughout his little course in the community center. And in the end, I went up and I said, look, I have a deal with Simon & Schuster. Will you be my agent? And he was a young, tween level books. He was in that young reader, young YA, I think it's called. Anyway, so it wasn't his genre, but he decided to be my agent, and he was very, very lucky he did. So that's how I got an agent. It was like bootstrap, go out and meet one, writing letters was getting me nowhere. So that's how I got the agent. Then I spent about a year. I wrote the book. I spent about a year. I wrote 6 pages a day, every day. And whether I did, whether it took me till noon or midnight, I wrote 6 pages a day. So every day I would clean up the prior 6 pages and then I would write 6 new pages. So the diligence and the pattern of how you're going to write the book to keep the book moving along, I think is important, where some people, there's, believe me, the crumbs on your counter look like they have to be done immediately when it's due, sit down and write or clean up the crumbs. Suddenly I'm cleaning up crumbs. You'll make up anything to do, but sit down and write the book. So that's the process of how that book got created. And my agent wanted to shop it. He almost blew the deal for me because I was so committed. My editor and I were really hashing this thing out, and then he's wanting to go out and shop it, and he almost blew the deal for me. So I'm not a big fan of agents, really. And so long story short, wrote the book. It came out and it earned out before its pub date, which I guess in the author's world, that is a big deal. So in the special sales, in the serial rights, in the books of the month club, and all these kind of things, the book paid the royalties, the advance back before it ever hit the book stands. So I'm not in the literary world. I'm a landscape architect and designer, and now I'm a Feng Shui consultant that has written a few books. So, but some people think that's a big deal when they say my book earned out before its pub date. So Simon & Schuster knew they had profit on their hands before it even hit the stands. So that's that. And then, gosh, I don't know. Do you want to ask me some more questions, or should we go on to the next book, which is the self-published one?
As you kept going, you kept kind of going, because I was like, okay, let me, draw upon this. And then you went ahead, you answered that next question for me right away. It's like you kind of read mine right there. So I love that. I think your story definitely has a lot to say about the difference between self-publishing and a traditional publisher, right? I mean, it seems like, because you followed the traditional publishing path to start, you of course had to adjust what you wanted to say to kind of meet their expectations. You actually literally asked them, so what do you want? Which, is an amazing tip for all of our listeners right now, because you might have to adjust your content. Sometimes, even though you're passionate about something, you need to target it a certain way in order for the publisher or the readers to want to read it.
Yeah, and to understand a mass market publisher versus a niche, you have to know what they're looking for. And, there were some things that were cut out of this book that I was like, in the editing process, but
and you don't have the creative control too. So there's almost two parts to play. I'm wondering, would you like to speak a little bit more about that? I mean, there's some pros and cons upon, publishing and self-publishing. There's a lot there to think about. And at the end of the day, I'm sure, it's meant to be whatever the specific author's looking for, but there's a lot to consider.
To have Simon & Schuster back you up with a book is certainly, you've got street cred already out there. You're not going to get in bookstores, not going to get in Barnes & Noble or whatever, being a self-published author, As a matter of fact, when my second book came out and it was self-published, they actually put it on the shelves, which was unheard of. Because of the sale of Move Your Stuff, Change Your Life, they actually put my self-published second book out there. So that's I got the lightning strike luck of these things happening, so I know it's a rare thing. But the second book, let me go back to the agent. My agent held the foreign rights to this book. Normally you'll just give away all your rights, and it is, if movie rights, multimedia rights, whatever, theme park rights. So if somebody wanted to make Move Your Stuff Land, Simon & Schuster had a piece of it. So I mean, it was the amount of rights that you give away. But my agent did go to Frankfurt every year to pitch his books in the foreign market. And so he held those foreign rights. And I don't think I would have had my book. That book is in 9 different languages. And if it wasn't for him holding those foreign rights and actually going and doing the work for it, Simon & Schuster just would have had those rights. They would have never shopped it around to try to get foreign rights, so luckily, I got a worldwide audience because that agent did shop, because he liked to go to the book show in Frankfurt every year. So for what that's worth, watch what rights you're giving away.
It's definitely an important thing to consider, of course.
Yeah. So then when that became so popular, my editor wanted me to write a book on Feng Shui, your clothes and fashion. And I just wasn't into it. I didn't want to write it. I said, if you're going to make me sit down for a year and make me write about which butterfly barrettes the little girls are going to have in their hair, it isn't going to happen. It's just like, it's boring. I'm not interested. So most people, when somebody like Simon Schuster says, will you write a book for us? You'll say yes. And I said, look, I'll blurb that. Whoever writes that, I'll put a blurb on the back saying how great, I'll do whatever, but just don't make me write that book. And she did find somebody else to write that book. It's called Feng Shui Chic. And I put a blurb on the back of it because I got out of having to write that book. So I'm not a die for being an author kind of a person. So I think I'm a little bit different than the people in this group. So then a lot of people read my book and they kept asking me, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? So I compiled a broader range of tools that I have in my sort of, offerings that I do as a Feng Shui consultant and healthy lifestyle designer. And Random House bought that book. And I spent 3 years trying to make Random House happy. The book was bought by one editor. They quit and it got pushed onto somebody else's desk. They didn't know what to do with it. So the assistant to that person, I was just lost in the weeds over there at Random House. So this is what can happen if your editor doesn't hold your hand all the way through the process or stay in the company. And so after about 3 years, I wrote that book 3 completely different ways. One very bullet point, one very storytelling, it was just, I repackaged that information 3 completely different ways. And I was like, how am I not getting through to these people? And there was a line that the assistant editor said. She goes, look, we thought we bought a book about Feng Shui and you keep writing this book about energy. And I was like, oh, that's it. She thinks it's about moving furniture, and I'm talking about what we're doing. We're doing about changing your energy. So upon that, I called my agent and I said, you got to get me out of this deal. I'm out. And it was almost like, you can't, you're fired, I quit. We were both so tired of it. And so because of the contract of that, if I wrote anything for the next 5 years, they owned it. So I had to sit on my hands for 5 years, which made me very happy. I had a really great excuse not to write. But then after that, I compiled the information and I packaged it in a way that was not anything like the 3 styles of the book that I wrote for them. I didn't want it to be called like, yeah, you waited 5 years and put it, So this book was never really designed to be like a best-selling book or anything. It was really just my personal brain dump, and I had to write it in a way that I guess I would say isn't a mass market type of a style. So that's the in bed, out of bed of publishers. Be careful who you're sleeping with. Is how I would say that.
No, I think in a lot of ways it could be said that you almost experience like the traditional publishing horror story, right? It's interesting because a lot of people I talk to do self-publishing, or they have done traditional, but I haven't heard this side of it as often. And I'm glad that you were able to present a real perspective on how things could go. To everybody listening right now, just the simple idea that your editor didn't understand what your book was even about, right? Like furniture versus energy. That's a huge disconnect. And moving from one person to another, I guess that's, innately the feeling that your book is just another pile on somebody else's desk, as opposed to maybe somebody who's like truly, passionate about the word. Just all these different factors moved into it. And I mean, I'm sure it must have been so nice. I mean, I love the way you designed that second book cover, right? If you don't mind holding it up again, I noticed there was just like fireworks going off, like you finally wanted to write your book, right? I was like,
here's me going, shoo.
So
Which
I mean,
this wasn't even the cover that I wanted, but I put it out to all my readers and I said, pick the one. I had a white cover, very clean. And everybody wanted that one, the girl in the field. I was like, all right, it's if that one, so I set myself aside because I knew that the other one I didn't like and it ended up being a success. So I was like, apparently I'm not the cover designer person. So.
well, I think it just goes to show like your story and the process it took to write this book, from being very constrained in a way that, you can't have as much freedom, people aren't quite understanding, making you rewrite it 3 times, while also, of course, promoting you, and you have that amazing, established authority by being with the publisher, but then, you got to move into something more creative where you got to do it yourself. I mean, that's what we are here at Authors on Mission, that, we're self-publishers, we help you do it, we're very done-for-you service, right? Like, if you want it to be a certain way, you got it. We're going to help you market it the way that we can to help you promote it to best-selling status, but at the end of the day, it's your decisions that's going to get into there. So that's kind of the benefits and the pros and cons of the whole publishing world. And I'm really happy you're able to share such like candid insights with us.
Yeah. So this book, Make a Shift, it's there's like move your stuff, make a shift. I tried to get the cadence of the titles to be the same. It was very strategic in the word choices, and the trim size is the same. The fonts are the same inside. I really worked hard to make them look almost like best friends out there in the world of, if you pick up one book, you're going to feel comfortable already in the second one just because the fonts are the same and things like that. So in the self-publishing world, those are the choices that I made for that one, having the same trim size and things like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, all incredible things to consider in the terms of writing. Now I almost wanted to transition a little bit here. We talked about your journey, we talked about the publishing. Now, one thing I would love to touch upon is the idea of kind of applying these practices to writing. You mentioned to me you might be able to offer some tips for writers, how to arrange their writing space for optimal creativity, productivity. What might you offer as advice to any of our listeners today interested in that sort of thing?
Sure. Well, in the Feng Shui world, it's all about where are you heading in life? What is your dream ultimate future? And then creating the spaces and places that support that. So, how they say, don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. So dress your house, not for the life you have, but for the life you want. A lot of people in the, running around on the laptop in Starbucks does not have a sense of, I am a permanent fixture writer here, that I'm a full-time writer, so I want to create a space, whether you use it or not. Hopefully it will be something that you love, where you love being and spending time. And so creating a space where you have a solid wall behind you, my blue screen wall, I call it. I'm in Mexico right now, so you get a lot of wild colors. This was the calmest wall I could find for this. So creating a space where you have a solid wall behind you, you can see who's coming in the door, and you have, I'll say, the more space in front of your face, the more opportunities you'll have. And I mean, I could go so far as like, do you have the checking account that the check is going to come in and the money is going to come in when the publisher buys it? Do you have a place, maybe it's a little silver box over on the right-hand front side of your desk over here, where you've placed, thank you, awesome agent, for picking up my book and going to sell it for the highest amount, or something like that. So putting your future needs as if it's already happened, and you're actually saying thank you notes and being in that attitude of gratitude, and propelling you in towards that future. So when this is a weird story, but it kind of shows its Feng Shui and publishing coming together. I wanted to be on the LA Times bestseller list. my agent in New York City. She's like, you're never going to get on the LA Times bestseller list because this is a trade paperback book and they don't have a trade paperback bestseller list on the LA Times. She's like, go up to San Francisco, run around there, do a lot of book signings, and you'll hopefully get in the San Francisco Chronicle. And I'm like, no, I'm from Southern California. I want the LA Times. And she's like, you're never going to get the LA Times. So I said, look, this is what I want you to do for New York. And here's all the things I want you to do. And I will work on the LA Times. She's like, you're wasting your time, but whatever. I said, no, I'm going to get the LA Times. So I took the LA Times bestseller list, one of the lists that I could find in the LA Times, and I whited out whoever was number one. I put my little information in there, ISB number and all that kind of stuff. And I put it in the prosperity area of my office, which is the back left-hand side area. And I was on for many weeks on the LA Times healthy bestseller list, which was with, at the time, it was like the Atkins diet, Susan Powder. We were all vying for the top spots over and over and over. And my book sat at number one for many weeks on like where the diet books are. And it's not really about food, but they were so committed to that book. They're like, that book is selling like hotcakes. We have to put it somewhere. And so they threw it on the healthy bestseller list. I do believe it was because of my intentional pursuit of that with my Feng Shui. You know, like why was my author or my editor, she's like, I don't even know. That has to be Feng Shui because your book doesn't even fit in that genre of books. So where there's a will, there's a way. With a lot of intention, you can get things to happen. So that's what the world of Feng Shui is all about. I would not face a wall. I would not put your desk up against a wall where there's a wall directly in front of you, because it's like you're beating your head against a wall, trying to get ahead, trying to move forward. I wouldn't put my desk facing out a window either, because when your desk is looking out a window, even though there's a lot of space in front of your face, you usually have the door behind you. And that is not a powerful, commanding position. Think of the king, the pope, the priest, the judge. You know, they always have a giant, tall chair back or a solid wall behind them. They've got their guards looking out for them, and they can see who's coming in. They're usually raised up a little bit as well, a couple steps, and they can see who's coming towards them, so you have time to react. So think of that type of position when you're placing yourself in space to become an authority on whatever subject you're writing. So that's called the command position. So, you know, basic Feng Shui there, your bed, your desk, where I don't know if you bead jewelry at the dining room table, pick the chair that has a nice solid wall behind it, and you can see who's coming in, and you have time to react.
I mean,
these are Feng Shui tips.
Yeah, thank you for these. They're incredible, you know, and I can see now what you mean about, like, it's not just about furniture necessarily, but about the energy you're putting out there, right? You're visualizing your success with writing, right? By setting up everything around you to amplify that. It's not necessarily about the type of desk, right? But more how you know, you're setting yourself up for success.
Right. I would not choose a glass top desk, so maybe it's a little bit about the desk, but yeah.
Curiosity, why not glass?
Just because it's see-through, and it's said that money kind of comes and goes. It's not very supportive. Okay. It's kind of like a weak
maybe one a very sturdy desk, maybe one that's not even as thin as this, right? Very thick, so that it's very supportive of your dreams.
Exactly. And you know, I function. So of course, Simon Schuster wants this Feng Shui book, right? So I said, well, I want to come to New York and I want to see who's in charge here, and I want to see their office. I want to see if it's good Feng Shui before I give you my book.
Really? And did you do that?
I did. I went to the president, Carolyn Reedy. I think she was called the president, or I don't think she was, I don't know, CEO or president. I don't know what her title was, but top dog, top gal. And she's kind of like a Mae West kind of a gal, you know. Come in and tell me what I want to hear. You know, she's just, people were afraid to cross the threshold into her office. And as a matter of fact, when I went to her, everybody stopped at the threshold of the door and they kind of pushed me in the office. That's how they were like, we're not going in there. And she was on, I don't know what floor, Rockefeller Center. Her desk was a full slab of granite, like, I don't know, 4x8 sheet of granite. She was not going anywhere. I don't know how they got that piece of rock up at the elevator. She had a giant desk. So you need a desk that's big enough to do the job. And yeah, and then she weathered many buyouts, Viacom, So she was impervious to warbling in that job. She was surrounded by Oprah picture, her and Oprah, her and, Hillary, everybody she knew people. And so tell the story of who you want to be in the space. Surround yourself. Make up a little thing that says bestseller. Put it behind you and like, there's me on the bestseller. That's my diploma there. That's my awards there. So create the story. Arnold Palmer, whenever he won a tournament, a golf tournament, he always created a pedestal for the next trophy. He was always making space and room and visualizing, I'm going to fill that one up next. So think of it like that. Where are you heading? Create the story in 3 dimensions. Who are you as a best-selling author? What would a best-selling author's office look like to you? Create that.
I love that. All amazing tips for everyone to take home today. And I mean, if you're listening right now, after this podcast is done, I mean, look around your own workspace. Does yours reflect what Karen just told us? If not, how can you improve it, right? How can you really apply this stuff? Because it's important, you need to have everything around you amplify where you want to be. So I completely understand what you're saying there. And you know what, guys, if you want to learn even more about everything Karen's taught us today, you have some workshops that we can attend and learn more about it, don't you?
Right. I have everything from, it's called the Move Your Stuff with Karen membership. And the first month is free. So there's 2 calls a month and you can send in your pictures, your floor plans, any questions just without pictures or floor plans. And then twice a month, I go through all the questions and people join in the Zoom call, or they just wait for the recording and listen to it later. And so if you just have a one-off question that you're like, oh my God, she didn't ask this, I have this question, you can go to moveitwithkaren.com, send in the question, it'll be on the recording, join the membership. And that means you'll be hooked into getting the recording later and you can hear your answer, or you can join the call live. And after 2 calls, you can unsubscribe and not pay a penny. After that, I think it's $37 a month. And some people feng shui their house a little bit at a time and they just keep checking in with me. How does it, this is what I did. This is what I did. I go, okay, move that, da, da, da. So that's what we do there. It's the cheapest way to get information out of me, live, in person, and one-on-one type help in a group setting. But I mean, we're talking about your space. It's not like general feng shui stuff. And then I do feng shui consultations. I fly all over the world, going to people's offices, going to people's houses, and they tell me what things they want to change in their life, from health, relationships, career, whatever. There is no subject outside of the feng shui box. Everything is included in feng shui somewhere. You got a spleen problem. I can address it with feng shui. I mean, there's the time of you're the second child of the family. There's a place for that. Like, there is no subject outside of the world of feng shui. And then I go all the way up to, now I teach people feng shui. So I have a little feng shui school. So, people have read my book and they're like, oh, people are now asking me to feng shui their house because I feng shui, because they saw me get results. And now I'm suddenly a feng shui consultant. All I did was read your book. I feel like I know just enough to be dangerous. So a lot of people, I call this, for those of you who are thinking about building your brand and, creating a book in order to, get that, what do you call that? Like your sense of, you're the professional or whatever. I would say that for the longest time, this was my #1 calling card. So I had a national best-selling book. I was blessed to have that. I feng shui for it, but, and it was a grassroots bestseller. So I didn't buy a bunch of books or give a bunch of things away to have a dip and spike on Amazon. Oh, maybe, I don't know, for those of you. So in order to be a national bestseller, you have to be on 2 nationally syndicated bestseller lists. So it's not like 1 million books are sold or something like that. It's just you're on 2 bestseller lists. So the LA Times was the first bestseller list I hit. And then back then, Amazon was this new thing. Amazon knew. And so they considered if you were in the top 100. Have you seen behind the books where you buy a book and it says 58,200 da 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 da, and that's the sales, list of all books in print. And so they were trying, when Amazon came out, they were like, how can it be a bestseller? Because it's up against all books in print, not the newly released books that are bestsellers all of a sudden, but in all books in print. So they said, if you were in the top, this was when Amazon had 1 bestseller list. Now you're a bestseller in Feng Shui, interior design, da, 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 da. They've got them broken down into micro bestseller lists. But at the time, there was 1 bestseller list. And if you were in the top 100 books of all books in print selling on Amazon, you were considered a national bestseller. And my book was number 52 of all books in print being sold at that time. So that's when that's when I became a national bestseller through the LA Times and Amazon's bestseller list. I just wanted to explain that because some people are like, oh, you must have sold 1 million books. Well, now I've almost sold 1 million books out of this one because it's in multiple languages and stuff like that. But it's because of the syndicated bestseller list. And now people are doing it they're strategizing to be a bestseller. We're going to do this, we're going to be a part of this thing, and we're going to give away free things so everybody joins and they get the book, and then boom, you spike up and become a bestseller for a second, and that's how they are doing it. My book was just a grassroots, I didn't do anything to make it go like it did other than my intentions.
Yeah, thank you for defining all that and explaining the process, because everybody listening, they're very curious about how you did it too and how to, achieve that status. The benefits these days is, you went through a lot of hurdles and had to learn a lot the whole process, and you made it, you achieved it. I mean, fortunately for a lot of us, there's nowadays very easy because we have Amazon and these resources where you can just get your book published, and with the right resources, you're able to kind of follow in a similar path too. I mean, for example, Authors on Mission offers a guaranteed Amazon best-selling status when we help you market your book, right? So there's so many different avenues you could take to follow this path. So I mean, thank you again for, explaining that to us and really sharing it. It's admirable. It's amazing.
There you go. So you guys do the strategy part. I don't even know how that works.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. I mean, for anybody listening right now, Karen had to kind of pave her way and learn, but, fortunately these days it's so easy. You have a team on your side, helping you, so there's many different options out there. We offer that as one of our packages, but you can do it yourself as well. And, it's all different avenues. So branching off of that, Karen, as we start to wrap up today, I'm just wondering, you've done so much, you have your workshops, you have your books. What's next on the horizon? I mean, I'm sure that's a question you get asked a lot. Or any other books out thinking about, any ideas brewing, any next steps?
I do have an idea brewing, and so I'm in the process of repackaging some content from the membership, actually. So I wrote a bunch of content for that, and I'm thinking about repackaging it and in a way that's much more right-brained. It's the art of Feng Shui, and so I wanted to be really highlighting on the word art, meaning because so many people get so hung up in, oh, should I paint my front door red? Is it right? Is it wrong? They consider this black and white, and it's really, Feng Shui is about who are you? Where do you want to go? The red door might be perfect for that person, not good for you. It's like an art. And so you have to know how to move with it. And so I'm thinking about putting something together in that arena. And I'm also thinking about building a house or buying a new house and redoing it and kind of doing a lot of video content with that. So that's why I'm sitting in Mexico right now. I'm thinking about building a house from scratch just to show from the ground up. There's no such thing as the perfect feng shui house. You have to deal with what you've got on the site, off site, nearby, whatever. And I thought, okay, let me just buy a house in Mexico and see if I can turn this on. That's something possibly in the works. I'm either going to do it or not. I'm getting close to that decision.
Yeah, I mean, not to put you on the spot, sometimes I like to, go back and forth and see what might be brewing in that brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that, you're capitalizing on the fact that these days people want to see content, right? Video content and seeing unique things like that. I mean, the idea of building a house, for those purposes, it's a challenge, right? Like, can she do it? And that's something people can watch and, keep up on and engage with. And, in a way, you could even write a book like documenting that process too, and, add QR codes into the content, as they're reading the book, and people can go back and forth from your book to the media, to the book, to the media, and just promote you in all different ways. I mean, endless possibilities. So
yeah, which is funny because I got into a little thing with Simon and Schuster because it said that I own the multimedia rights, and I was trying to put out a multimedia compilation of this information, and I got snafu'd into the legal. This is a weird one because my contract had the word multimedia in it, and I own the multimedia rights. So now when video and QR code and all this stuff comes about, I'm like, I'm going to do a multimedia thing because I own the rights. And I got shut down legally because they go back to the intent of the law in 1995 when that word multimedia was in that contract. And so I did not have the rights based on this new multimedia that didn't even exist at the time of when I wrote it. Isn't that a strange one? And so there was another clause that's like, and we own everything else, and so it got lumped into the we own everything else. I did get the audio book rights back after, I can't remember how many years they owned the audio rights, and I put out the audio book on that. So I fought to get the audio rights, and Simon & Schuster gave them back to me. So, the rights are weird when you're like, sure, have it. I just want to be published with you. But there is a method with your agent to follow through and watch where those rights are going and what you intend in the future. So be mindful of what you're giving away when you're signing those contracts.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be like a big warning overarching this whole podcast, right? Like, be mindful of what you're getting into, think ahead, plan ahead, see what the path might be ahead of you so that you know exactly how to adapt to it and learn from it, and
exactly and roll with it when you made a mistake,
Exactly.
One of my things, it's either build the house or keep traveling. And what my students of my course love about me, they say, there's a lot of feng shui people out there teaching feng shui, but they're kind of not living it. And they're like, we see you living your best life. You travel the world, you live in Mexico, you like whatever. And they say, you walk your talk. And my final bit is, who are you and what is authentically you? And stay in that lane and it'll all kind of work out, as opposed to trying to be the thing that's the hottest new thing right now. And I would say, chuck all that. Stay where you're very centered. You're like, you know what? This is the weird, but this is who I am, and I'm gonna stick there. Like I said, the gay humor books. Okay, it's just, my friend and I were having fun. We were having fun doing that together. And that is when the light turns on and people just feel the vibe of you're just lighting up because you're authentically you. So I say, stay in that lane. It'll all work out if you just stick with that and not try to contort yourself to the current, marketing thing du jour.
I mean, an amazing tip too, I mean, there's as much as we can adapt our content and our voice to match our target audience and then, what we want to get across, staying true to yourself is always just an amazing way to have people connect to you more. Like they not only trust you, but also relate to you, right? So all of that comes into play.
Yeah, I did not feel authentic writing a book about Feng Shui fashion, and I turned it down. And
yeah,
a lot of people
there you go. Another
could
example.
not believe, could not believe I did that. They were like, "You're crazy," and I'm like, no, that's not me.
Well, you got to do what you got to do. You got to follow your dreams, but also in a smart way, learning from it. And I think everything that we've talked about on this podcast today goes toward that. So to all of our listeners, I mean, pick up Karen's books, check out her course. There's so many endless things that we can learn from this, whether it be in the writing world or anything else. As we've heard, Karen's tips apply to multiple areas of life. So whatever it is that you might need some advice on, she's got it right there for you. Submit a question 2 times a month. She'll be able to answer it for you. All this stuff. I mean, thank you so much for sharing all this with us, Karen.
Sure. Yeah. Move it with Karen.com will get you in, and you'll be able to eventually find your way to the website from there, the main website. But
yeah, and we'll put links in the description of this video too, so everybody listening can go click it right now.
Perfect. Okay. Well, it's been so fun hanging out with you, and I hope I've been helpful. I hope I've been enlightening and not old-fashioned with the ways of what I've done here over the years.
No, there's so much to learn from it, even in just the adaptability and the determination and everything. So thank you so much for all of this. And to all of our listeners today, thank you so much for joining us on Authors on Mission podcast. Karen's journey from greeting card designer to best-selling author shows how following your unique path can lead to extraordinary success. Remember to check out her work. And until next time, keep writing, keep growing, and keep pursuing your mission. And we'll see you next time on our podcast. Have a great day.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.